Hello, my name is Josh Neese, and this is my game pitch for My World. My World is a Metroidvania-style puzzle platformer where you play as a child and you see the world through their imagination in a 2D hand-drawn art style. So what the child might see is a canyon or a dungeon, but we know as a player know it's just their living room. And the vacuum cleaner might be a monster, or the lamp might be another creature or an NPC. Just kind of playing with the imaginations of a child. The theme of this game is the child's imagination and seeing the world through the child's eyes. Where a child might see a large canyon, an insurpassable gap, it might just be a gap between two couches in their living room. Where a child sees a large angry grizzly bear, it could just be the neighbor's St. Bernard dog. Then there's different ways to get past both of these obstacles. So the goal of this game is for the player, the child, to reunite with their parent, who the parent might have just went out to the store or something to that effect, but through a child's imagination, they're gone forever. So the player will reunite with their parent by traveling the map, and they will be backtracking and doing other things with that, overcoming obstacles, solving puzzles. Players will also come across these different items that give them different abilities, but these items have durabilities, so you only have a limited time to use them. There will be a number of these items scattered throughout the map, and the player can have any number of them at once. So another smaller aspect of this game is resource management, to where the player has to use their items at correct times and use them sparingly. Here's an example of a player action that will take place in the game. So in the game, there will be obstacles the player needs to overcome, and the goal is to have multiple ways to overcome this obstacle. So in this instance, the player comes up to a gap where we have determined the player cannot jump across. The player has access to 3 different items. The cape, so the player has access to 3 different items. The washcloth that grants the player the ability to fly, the boots that allow the player to jump long distances, and the gloves that give the player super strength that allows them to pick up objects. So in these 3 different items, and these are just 3 examples, the player can overcome this obstacle in 3 different ways, in multiple different ways. The goal for these player actions is to have at least 2 different items that can overcome obstacles, and in special occasions, 1 obstacle, as long as we know the player has access to that item. But that will also come in play with the item management, so player will need to utilize a resource. Similar games to this are the Super Metroid games, as well as the Castlevania games. Both those games include a large sprawling map that you need specific items to overcome specific obstacles. Fez is another similar game to My World, and that is puzzle platforming, and then there's multiple ways to solve different puzzles. There are more similar games to My World, but these are the 3 games that have the most core ideas that I want to take something similar of and add it to my game. A couple of the biggest developmental risks for this game are, of course, the art. The idea for this game is to have a hand-drawn art style, but since we're not animators, we would have to come up with the art on our own, which could pose a big developmental risk, or it could just mean a complete switch on art style, which could impact the fun or general feel of the game. Another big developmental risk is making puzzles that are both fun and challenging to the player. One big design risk for making this puzzle is making them solvable by multiple different items, which that could pose a huge risk, a huge challenge to the development of this game. And thank you for listening to my pitch for my game, My World.